So I'll show you just a bit of that. And the last thing, the conservatives are going to try and censor the internet. So yesterday I was reporting that it was an erroneous smear that the liberals were saying that the conservatives wanted to censor the internet, but somebody went back and found a committee conversation talking about just that, banning VPNs and the like. So I'll show you that. Is it an erroneous smear, or is it actually valid that the conservatives would think to ban or to introduce a digital ID for access to the internet? Now, Poilievre and his camp have come out and said very clearly, we're not going to do that. And maybe it'll go the way of the porn site ban in the UK, where they said it's on the onus of the site itself to verify age, and then nobody did anything about it after that, right? And like it could happen, right? This is a flashpoint. We're talking about it, and then it just kind of drops away. So who knows? There's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. We have to start with theft. And theft of what? Theft of our tax dollars. Yesterday, I talked about how historically Canada had thrown $50 million at Haiti for reasons. And there's a big gang war in Haiti. People are trying to take control. Canada was kind of tapped by not the UN to fix this. And Canada is throwing money at it. And now Canada is throwing more money at it at a Kenya-led initiative to fix Haiti. I think we should probably let Haiti govern itself. Why does Kenya and Canada get to go in, guns a-blazing, or whatever it is, money a-blazing, same thing, influence a-blazing, and get to influence the outcome of this civil conflict? Why? Why is that our responsibility? Why are we spending this money? Arrive scam is a $60 million boondoggle. We're throwing around $80 million like it's nothing, right? And I mean, there's other big ticket items that we don't even talk about. Where's the money, Catherine McKenna? Like that's a lot of $600 billion, right? Like, and we need some receipts. Oh, infrastructure, she says. Sure, right? But anyway, let's get into this. Canada pledges $80.5 million for Kenya-led mission to improve security in Haiti. Right. Global News is reporting the same thing. Global Affairs Canada says it's putting $80.5 million towards a mission to improve security conditions in Haiti, where rampant gang violence has caused an ongoing crisis. So it's our responsibility to let the Kenyans lead a mission to Haiti, and we're going to pay for it. Yay, Canada. What? Doesn't make any sense. Canada is putting $80.5 million toward a mission to improve security conditions in Haiti. Global Affairs Canada says the money will go to a multinational security mission led by Kenya to support efforts by the Haitian National Police. So we're picking sides here, and we've decided the Haitian National Police are the ones to back. It's expected to support training, communications, and logistics for police deployment or police deployed to the mission, and expertise in areas like human rights due diligence. Yeah, that's going to go well. The international mission is not a United Nations operation, but it was authorized by the UN Security Council in October. Does this 80 million count towards our UN dues? Anybody? I think the answer is no. Not official UN business. CTV News is reporting U.S. ambassador to NATO accuses Canada of lack of a commitment to defense spending pledge. We just threw $80 million at Haiti. Holy smoke. Right? How can you say we're not committed to this war relationship we've got going on? And further, how can you say we're not committed to just wasting Canadian taxpayer dollars, borrowed taxpayer dollars, all around the world, right? Ahmed Hassan, the Somalian, was out in Jordan, and he's throwing around Canadian tax dollars. He says, during my visit to Jordan, I also announced further development projects. Together, we will continue work to promote regional peace and stability, refugee protection, education, climate action, and women's economic empowerment. Women's economic empowerment, eh? What exactly are we spending our money on here? So I don't have a dollar figure, but more money thrown around all over the place. There was a dollar figure in the last tweet. There was another tweet that he made. Hold on, I'll see if I can find it. It was about aid to Gaza. Forget it. Moving on. Arrive scam. Larry Brock is grilling. I can't remember who he's grilling. He says lied, and likely lied. Suspended civil servants believe that former CBSA president, current CBSA president, and Canada's top IT bureaucrat lied to committee regarding Trudeau's $60 million Arrive scam. Sign if you support a full investigation. Yeah, like the investigation is going to cost more than $60 million. It's going to be unbelievable, the cost of this. Just one law firm. The defense is going to cost $60 million. It's 2 minutes, but I think it's an interesting back and forth. So we'll watch all of it. I think. Here we go.
I want to take my opening round with both of you to put a fine point on this issue. This discussion has to end, and it needs to end today as to who's responsible for the selection of GC strategies. Canadians want to know. Canadians are rightfully angry that this two-person firm working out of their basement, doing no IT work, have collected almost $20 million in taxpayer funds. So I can understand why the government wants to shield themselves, the Justin Trudeau government wants to shield themselves from any responsibility.
The question you have to ask yourself is, who was the CIO and who was the president when the decision was made?
Who was the CIO at that time?
Mendon.
Mendon. And the president?
John Osowski.
Osowski. Now, you've identified individuals who have misled the committee. I'm not going to use the word who misled. I want to know who lied to committee, who lied to parliamentarians, who lied to Canadians. Identify those players, please.
Well, frankly, if you look at that package that I provided to the OAG, there are three components. The first one shows clearly that Mendon and John Osowski were the ones that selected. The second...
Don't lie to Canadians.
Mendon has completely lied to Canadians.
Did John Osowski lie to Canadians when he appeared at committee?
I can only assume that that's what he did, because this is what Erin O'Gorman's own documentation preparing for OGO says. And even Erin O'Gorman pretended that she didn't know who selected GC strategies, yet she was briefed on it.
Erin O'Gorman appeared at committee last week. She was shocked that we were focusing so much attention on her. Did she lie to committee? Did she lie to Canadians that she had no responsibility or no knowledge as to who chose GC strategies? Yes or no, sir?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's pretty explosive, right? Pretty explosive testimony. And not to say that we're spinning around in circles, but like we have to now go back and bring Erin O'Gorman and the other Mendon back and ask them these questions. Larry Brock is going to be angry. He's going to say, do you understand the difference between lying and telling the truth? And they're going to say, yes, sir, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, we were misunderstood. We were misquoted. We didn't understand, whatever it is. And then they'll leave. And then Larry Brock will want to have them back to, like, you know, nail them to the wall or whatever. And like, how dare you lie to Canadians or whatever it is. And then they won't show up. And then what are we going to do? The NDP and the Liberals are not going to call these people to Parliament on threat of being arrested. That's just not going to happen. And that's unfortunate. But that's the stalemate we find ourselves in GC strategies. And this is still, I mean, this is other people in that realm of work. Now, the difference may be that O'Gorman and Mendon may have to come because they are more closely tied to the government or something to that effect. Maybe. But I'm not holding my breath, right? Like I can imagine maybe, they're sick today. You know, oh man, he was supposed to show up, but he just can't. Shucks, right? Like I'm not expecting to get further with these guys than we've gotten with GC strategies. And so I hope I'm wrong about that. Here's Holly Doan. She says, Justice Marie-Jose Hogue pleads with immigrant groups to testify without fear of retaliation at Commission on Federal Interference. So she's saying, listen, just come and tell us what happened. But her whole thing is not going to be valid. It's not going to have validity because a lot of the people are afraid because they're going to have retribution from China, from agents of China who are in Canada. And if they go to the police, well, I mean, we have Chinese police stations operating in Canada right now, right? And that's not good, right? That's very bad if you ask me. And so these people have a well-founded reason to be fearful of retribution from China, especially even within the setup of this investigation into Chinese influence, foreign influence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The people withstanding are largely the people who are trying to continue to use this asset to their advantage. Moving on just a little bit, here's a grab bag of governance. This is a ridiculous story. I like the Western Standard. They've got good stuff. Apparently, the term British Columbians is now deemed offensive by the BC government. So instead of using British Columbians, they want you to use BC, right? Like, wow, pretty crazy. So the British part is the offensive part, right? Columbians is just fine. That's very, very progressive. Maybe we'll just call it Columbia. That one's taken. That name's taken. Oh. However, British Columbians. That's very racist. We can't have that colonialism down in Canada. Ooh, very scary stuff. Tamara Litch is celebrating the 2 years since the convoy by reminding us on social media what she endured. And she said, 2 years ago, I was sitting in a courtroom being denied bail for a charge of counseling others to commit mischief, which did not occur. Pretty wild stuff. And I mean, again, our justice system, and I have further examples of this later in the show, our justice system is corrupted to the core, I think, at this point in time. We have many situations where, on one hand, we have violent criminals being let out, rapists, murderers, and things like that. There's a rapist being let out of an Edmonton jail, and he's moving to Vancouver, right? And on the other side, we've got the Coutts guys there are still 2 Coutts guys in jail, and all completely trumped up, erroneous nonsense charges. Honestly. So it's crazy. It's crazy stuff what's going on. Jane, let's talk about this. Proposed Canadian law could see Christians jailed for quoting the Bible. If the Bloc Québécois Bill C-367 goes through, religious exemptions under the hate speech section of the criminal code would be removed, which would see Christians arrested for quoting scripture or publicly voicing opposition to sin. So hate crimes? I wonder who they're being hateful for. Oh, this is further information on this block bill. Eva Vanderbuck, I'm getting her name terribly wrong, but she's an international type person, right? She talks about the Dutch farmers a lot, and she's been around the freedom movements and been on all the shows that are focusing on that. And she says Canadian Christian persecution is about to be introduced in Canada. If passed, Bill C-367 could land Christians in jail for quoting the Bible or expressing a faith-based opinion if the Canadian government deems it promotional of hatred or anti-Semitism. This is an absolute disgrace. Yeah, pretty wild stuff that they're moving forward with this. And it looks, I mean, the NDP Liberals are very radical, and they like laws like this, very divisive laws, and it's not good. Here's Doug Ford talking about how he doesn't know who's running the country, Justin Trudeau or climate radical Stephen Guilbeault. Here we go.
We need to build roads and bridges and schools and hospitals, and we're investing $183 billion in infrastructure right now, $70 billion in transit, $28 billion in building roads and highways.
But I read the other day, somebody said that this guy's agenda is to deindustrialize. He's that much of an ideologue.
Yeah, he is, and we'll see what happens in the election. The people will have an opportunity to voice their opinion. But
do you think the people along that corridor, the 413?
Well, they're going to lose. We won every single seat in that area, be it Brampton and Caledon and Mississauga, based on the 413. They're for it. Poll after poll after poll. And I just do not understand. And sometimes I sit back and wonder, who's running the country, Justin Trudeau or Guilbeault? And right now, I don't know who's running the country. So we need.
Yep, great. Good job, Doug. Reinforce that point. Repeat it, say it again. It's true, though. An ideologue, a radical environmental ideologue, is in control of a lot of the Canadian domestic policy, and Justin Trudeau seems, well, that's what he's doing, right? That's his signature, right? Shut it all down, deindustrialize, no more roads. No more roads? That seems like a bad idea, especially when we're building roads in Ukraine. CBC Watcher says it appears that Justin Trudeau's carbon tax is so unpopular that other Liberals won't even say if they support it. So yesterday I showed 35 seconds of a cut clip with Vasi Kapoulas asking Bonnie Crombie, the Ontario Liberal leader, who's supposedly challenging Doug Ford for premiership right now. Nope, in the one poll that I saw. I don't think it's true either. But she wouldn't confirm if she agreed with or wanted to reinforce a carbon tax, the carbon tax, Trudeau's carbon tax. Are you in agreement with that? All that. The question was asked over and over again, and she wouldn't answer. And she was even pointed out that Doug Ford is calling you the queen of the carbon tax. And she still would, well, we've got to study this. We're not sure. We're not sure yet. Yes, it's inflationary. Stop it. These people are ideologically aligned with taxing us into the poorhouse. And I think that it's interesting that she's not allowed to be open with it, because the voters would never abide that, her being that open. Although they must know that she supports it. They tacitly support it, right? Paul is sharing this, and this is Alberta Premier Danielle Smith announcing a plan to grow the Alberta Heritage Fund between $250 and $400 billion by 2050. All income from the fund will be reinvested in the fund and not spent. Alberta will limit government spending in all years moving forward. Well, that sounds like a good idea. It sounds like an all right idea. What will the Heritage Fund be used for, right? Like, I'm interested in what the Heritage Fund is to be used for. It's going to only invest in itself and not be spent. Anyway, I'm just not sure what it'll be used for. Maybe she'll explain in the video. Here we go.
Last year, our government passed a law mandating that all income earned in the Alberta Heritage Fund must be invested in the fund rather than spent. During the current budget year, we hope to invest and reinvest approximately $3 billion of surplus and investment income back into the Heritage Fund, increasing its value to almost $25 billion. That's up from $17 billion just a couple of years ago. This puts us back on the right track. In addition, I have instructed our finance minister to limit government spending to below the legislated rate cap of inflation plus population growth, not just during lean years with lower oil prices as we expect next year, but also in years when high oil and natural gas prices result in billions of surplus provincial dollars. Instead of spending all that non-renewable surplus cash on the wants of today, we will be fiscally disciplined, invest in the Heritage Fund annually, strategically pay down maturing debt, and slowly but surely wean our province's budget off the volatile roller coaster of resource revenues. Prior to the end of this year, our government will publicly release a long-term financial plan charting a path to a Heritage Fund of between $250 and $400 billion by the year 2050.
All right. So I guess it creates a bulwark against the roller coaster, she said, of, ups and downs, and it just creates a nice level playing field. I hope it works. I hope it does what she's projecting it will do. But if a Liberal government walks in there and sees, or an NDP government walks in there and sees a Heritage Fund with $250 billion in there, do you think they'll keep that? They'll invest it in, I don't know, female reproductive health in Kenya or something like that. American Warrior for Christ is talking about immigration. We'll talk about immigration very quickly. He points this out. He says, no one leaves China without permission from the communist government. Now ask yourselves why there are legions of Chinese fighting age males crossing the United States southern border. Great question. Here's some color on that. Just how many fighting age men, Chinese men, are crossing the southern border? Doug says number of Chinese migrants crossing the border at San Diego now exceeds Mexicans and is second only to Colombians, with 21,000 entering there in the past 5 months. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of movement, right? Globe Politics says Canada investigating cartel members smuggling Mexicans over the border to America. So what's happening is Mexican smugglers are coming to Canada and taking people into the United States through the northern border. As we watched, it was Vivek Ramaswamy, right? He crossed the Canadian-U.S. border on the northern side. And he said, nobody's even there's no razor wire here. There's nothing happening here. Nobody cares. And it's very, there's not a lot of people, but soon, and especially when it's being industrialized like this, people are making money doing this, right? There's a money to be made, and people will pay a lot to have a guide to get you where you want to go, right? Here you are in the United States. Have fun. That's that. Crazy, right? Why is this being allowed, even encouraged by a lot of the politicians? Justin says BC has announced the details of a home flipping tax. People who sell homes within a year of buying them will be subject to a 20% tax on the profits of flipping, with a 0 to 20% tax for properties flipped in the second year. There will be a number of exceptions carved out. The details on British Columbia's new home flipping tax, so you can read it from the CBC if you're interested. There's a lot of ways that higher interest rates make monthly payments unaffordable. And now if you use that as a job, as an income, now you can't, right? Now they're going to take your profit, 20% profit, to give to the government in taxes. I mean, holy smokeronis, that's huge, right? And you can't build a profitable business around that, right? So they're trying to stop house flipping in Canada. That's for sure. Very interesting. And in British Columbia, excuse me. So very interesting, if you ask me. And, is that going to solve the immigration problem? Is that going to solve the price of housing problem? I don't think so. But there we are. Andy No is responding to Michael Murphy. Murphy says Ireland's anti-immigration backlash has spiraled into countrywide unrest. So that's interesting, right? And like in Ireland, they have a modern history of terrorism to maintain their way of life against the British and all sorts of other stuff. And so it's interesting to see this kind of play out. We'll see how this does play out, right? Like the countrywide unrest, they're not playing, the Irish aren't. I've seen towns where everybody shows up, where hundreds of people show up and they're opposed to migrants coming into hotels. And then after the whole situation happens, but before the migrants move in, presumably the hotel or the shelter gets burned to the ground. So all of that is interesting. It's happened in the last couple of weeks. It's not been all that long since that happened. And if they're ramping up, well, it'll be interesting to see, because we've seen conflict. I've seen conflict in Dublin. I've seen conflict where people are upset and they're out protesting, et cetera, et cetera. But it still feels, that conflict still feels a lot more like the BLM or the Palestinian conflicts, that kind of stuff, rather than a concentrated effort to fight back against migrants coming in or anything to that effect. And what I've seen in the small villages in Ireland more recently is people fighting back against that, and they're outnumbering and they're outnumbering the police or whatever. And so that's interesting. And it just seems like this is really the wrong move. Like really, really the wrong move. We're going in the wrong direction. We shouldn't be flooding our shelters and hotels, etc., with fighting age Chinese or foreign men and ignoring it and pretending everything's fine, because everything is not fine when they do that. Andy No is responding to this, and he says, I visited Ireland last year and interviewed people about mass migration. The people of Ireland are different from British, Western Europeans, and Americans in regard to accepting mass migration as a norm. So we'll see. I hope that's right, and I hope that they find a really good way to protest and to turn things back. And it seems like they already know a great way to do that and to get results. And it's not popular to say on videos like this or anything like that, but what they did was effective and got them their country, right? I think so, right? And what was it, like the late 80s, right? Early 90s, et cetera, the IRA and all of that history. And again, I'm not glorifying it, but like sometimes in situations where the conversation has completely run out, and I've said this a few times, it's uncomfortable, but politics, voting may not be the way out of this. So what is? Well, there's historical examples, recent modern historical examples. Raw Egg Nationalist says they have nothing to say because they've decided it's an acceptable price for you to pay. It's that simple. Public opinion only matters when it supports what politicians like Helen here want. So this is again in Ireland. Irish Minister for Justice Helen McEntry has no comment about a Congolese invader who committed a string of sexual crimes but was not deported. He'd been in Ireland for 10 years. And they tried to deport him, but he didn't leave. And this is what's happened. So here we go.
Minister, last week, Congolese asylum seeker Kadima Mbuye was jailed after he entered into a room where a woman was recovering from surgery at UHL and proceeded to masturbate at the foot of her bed. He had 8 previous convictions, mostly for similar offences. If Ireland's international protection system is fit for purpose, how did Mbuye manage to stay here as an asylum seeker for almost 10 years and never have his claim either upheld or denied, allowing him to commit multiple sexual offences?
So I'm not going to comment on any individual case.
But he was here for 10 years and he was neither approved or denied as an international protection applicant. That seems like a very long time.
I'm not going to comment on any individual case. Obviously, every case is different and has to be treated differently. But we have very clear rules. We have very clear procedures here. But I won't comment on individual cases.
And Minister,
that was the follow-up too. So they found this loophole. I'm not going to comment on any particular case, right? Found this loophole that they can not comment on these cases and get away with not commenting. Maybe the reporters should start talking about hypotheticals. Hypothetically, if a person were to do something like this, why do you think the government would turn a blind eye to this hypothetical crime? Right? You got to be sneaky. You got to be a little wily about it. Justin Trudeau, and to preempt this a little bit, this is election governance grab bag, because I think that there's an election coming, and this is electioneering, and this is distraction and distracting the population while one thing happens, they're doing like, look over here while we rob you over here, right? And so Anti-Taxer says everything King Tampon says, does, and tweets is meant to be a distraction from the actual stories that break about his corrupt government. King Tampon, of course, is Justin Trudeau. And so one of the first examples is details withheld on fired scientists to save health agency embarrassment. MPs say, I think there's more to it than that. And cost of living crisis deepens. Liberals spend 1.3 million on 3 affordability retreats. Right? So these people have scandals layered on scandals, layered on scandals. We haven't even got to the bottom of We Charity scandal yet. But Justin Trudeau wants you to focus on this. He says, I want to be very clear about this. S2LGBTQI plus Ramalama Ding Dong Canadians in Alberta and across the country deserve to be treated with respect, and they should be able to be who they are and love who they love without fear. To the members of Edmonton's community, we heard from you, blah, blah. I don't really care about the rest of it, but you understand what's going on. He's trying to weaponize against Alberta and Pierre Poilievre the sane, rational communications and policies that are coming out of the Conservative Party, and to a degree the United Conservative Party in Alberta. He's trying to take that and weaponize it against them. And I think that Danielle Smith doesn't go far enough. And I'm glad that Pierre Poilievre is saying, an adult, we should stop using their language. We should stop allowing communists to set the conversation on mutilating healthy children's sex organs. We should absolutely end that, because why should we play their game, right? Like, if you take sterilizing cross-sex hormones, you should at least be an adult who knows what they're getting into, with full disclosures necessary in law, et cetera, about your sterilization, about how this is not a pause or anything like that. This is not temporary. It's forever, right? Like, you're going to be sterile and you can't undo it. And also, like, if you want to cut off your penis, well, I've got bad news about a whole bunch of things that have to do with that, right? It's crazy that we cede the language territory so easily because it might hurt people's feelings. I won't. I refuse. Here's CTV News in Alberta. So in the context of Justin Trudeau trying to weaponize this gender-bending narrative that is false, a false gender-bending narrative, Alberta is saying, these rainbow crosswalks are pretty divisive. I don't think we should be paying for virtue signaling with tax dollars. I don't think that anything like this should be paid for or put on public property. Like, the inclusion, everybody's included, Ramalama Ding Dong, everybody's happy kumbaya flag, get lost. Like, seriously, put a crosswalk there. CTV News says, Alberta town voting today on bylaw banning pride crosswalks. And then we can fast forward a couple of hours, and they did it. Congratulations to Westlock on passing the bylaw banning rainbow crosswalks and pride flags on municipal buildings. One step at a time, Alberta. Man, I wish we could do that here. We should be able to do that here. Westlock residents to vote on whether, so there's the whole article if you're interested in reading about that. So people are pushing back on this woke nonsense. They're not interested in living in a false reality. Here's another weak attempt by the Liberals to smear Poilievre as importing far-right American-style politics to Canada. This whole push on transgenderism is just annoying. Annoying is not the right word. It's very, very subversive of our entire culture. And it is being forced on everyone using this inclusive language. Like, we all have to be inclusive and don't be a bigot and all this other stuff. It's not about bigotry. It's about retaining our culture, our Western culture at core. Here we go.
The Trump administration has reversed an Obama administration policy that allowed transgender public school students to use whatever restroom they wanted.
Just this year, more than 24 bathroom bills have been filed by Republicans in at least 15 states.
Obviously, female sports, female change rooms, female bathrooms should be for females, not for biological males.
The Trump administration has reversed an
So the Liberal Party is for anybody being able to use any bathroom they want, anytime they want, and totally it's fine. It's fine, and if you don't think it's fine, you're a bigot. And you're far-right American. Give me a break. What a ridiculous... Honestly, the whole idea of having the ability to walk into a girl's washroom or female women's washroom as a fully male person and not allow the women in there to question, what's going on. Like, oh, I think you're in the wrong room, sir. Right? You can't even say that because, whoa, it's ma'am, right? Like, and how does that even work, right? When you're in a situation where women, and somebody else was saying women are, I think it was like redheaded libertarian or something like that, was saying women are inherently not confrontational. Like women will avoid confrontation if they can. And so putting them in a situation where, you know, a very confrontational male could be in their space, you're setting the women up to just have to shut up and deal with it, right? And it's not fair. Not fair is the wrong, it's understatement of the century. Maybe not the century, of today, let's say. Okay. Andrew Lawton is talking about how Kevin Vuong wants to cross the floor and cross from independent MP to conservative MP. Dan McTeague thoroughly 100% behind this. So Andrew Lawton, during this interview, asks him, and here's the tweet, says, independent member of parliament Kevin Vuong says he'd like to join the Conservatives and welcomes a conversation with the party or leader Poilievre about it. And Dan McTeague says, every Conservative I've met thinks this is a no-brainer. So does this former Liberal and many like myself who are prepared to help see Kevin elected as a Conservative, a party that is virtually indistinguishable from the Liberal Party I served from 1977 to 2014. So the Conservatives under Poilievre are the Liberals, classic Liberals from the early 2000s. So the sponsorship scandal, come on, right? But I do agree, the Overton window has shifted to the point where the Conservative Party now is very different than the Conservative Party was when I was growing up. And they're pushing different things. And I mean, some of the things that they're supporting, I don't agree with as well. But I'm just watching here. I don't think that a YouTube show or anything like that is going to derail the track we're on at this point in time. And it looks like Poilievre is going to be the next prime minister. I'd love to be wrong. I'd love to have a huge surprise and have, you know, Truckers or Maxime Bernier as the prime minister, but it doesn't look likely. So what looks very likely is Trudeau is going to lose. Jagmeet and Trudeau are going to be under 90 seats and Poilievre is going to have 220 seats. And he's going to use that majority to axe the tax, probably. And people are going to be really happy about that, but he's going to keep importing people. He's going to build 15-minute cities. And it's going to take 6 years before people realize that maybe he's not our guy. And we might get rid of him after 12 years, but after 12 years of that, I mean, and even then, people will just get used to it. Like it'll just be a different paradigm. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful